This na your regular press briefing we can meet you every Thursday. Today we come na Yoruba link and the press briefing where the Ministry of Information and Communication can hold. Now we go inside the conference room for go witness the press briefing.
Starts with the Ministry of Health. The Ministry of Health and Sanitation joins the rest of the world today, 10th October 2019, in celebrating World Sight Day on the theme Vision First. The World Sight Day is the most important date on the eye health calendar, and the ultimate goal of this celebration is to create a global awareness mental health day with the theme Working Together to Prevent Suicide. According to WHO, suicide, which is one of the serious effects of mental health, is the third leading cause of death among 15 to 19 years of age. His Excellency President Dr. Julius Maada Bio on Tuesday, 8th October 2019, turned the sword to kickstart the construction of a facility for the manufacturing of baking equipment. Sunoco Assembly Plant facility situated at Wellington will also house a training center for food technology and related electrical and mechanical maintenance technicians. The project, when completed, will create thousands of jobs for young people in Sierra Leone. The Minister of Information and Communications, Mohamed Naman Swami, has appealed to colleague ministers of ECOWAS Commission for Sierra Leone to benefit from projects and programs from the Commission aimed at enhancing Sierra Leone's digital transformation program currently developed by the Ministry in line with African Union Digital Transformation Strategy and the ECOWAS Digital Program. The Information Minister made the statement in his address to colleague ministers in charge of ICT, telecoms, and post at the just concluded 16th ECOWAS Ministerial meeting at Laiko Hotel, Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso. 9th October every year is World Food Day, and Sierra Leone joined other nations around the globe to observe this day. The day was commemorated with a ceremony held at the foyer of the General Post Office at Shani Stephen Street, where I officially launched the annual letter writing competition for schools in Sierra Leone that is aimed at supporting Sierra Leone's foreign and international cooperation ministry. The visit is expected to not only increase India's outreach in Africa, but is also aimed at broadening and deepening the bilateral relations between the two nations. Like I mentioned earlier, we have in our midst the Minister of Energy and his team from the ministry. We also have the Minister for Local Governments and Rural Development. I'll start with the Ministry of Energy. The primary...
He's also in his team.
Oh yeah, his team. Very bad. Sorry, sir. The primary responsibility of the Ministry of Energy is to formulate and implement policies, projects and programs on energy and provide oversight functions across the entire energy supply chain for all sector agencies, which include electricity generation and transmission authority, EGTC, electricity distribution and supply agency, EDSA, electricity and water regulation commission, EWRC, and other forms of energy supply and utilization. Julius Maada Bio, there's a lot that's been happening in the ministry. Therefore, today we decided to invite him to this press conference so he can come and give us updates on where we are regarding energy. Thank you very much.
Serious crisis for over 2 decades. When you talk about electricity, you talk about two main arms of the sector. The one is the generation, whereby you produce the power itself. The other one is the transmission and distribution, whereby the power that is generated is utilized by the line. We took over a situation in which both were in crisis. Generation capacity was very low. The available generation that was there when we took over was very expensive and not affordable. I have to emphasize that because for you and I to actually benefit from electricity, it has to be affordable. We should afford it. That was not the case. I will refrain from calling the company's names for very good business in terms of where we are right now. But we did We were left with no option but to terminate the contracts that we met at that time because they were very expensive and not reliable. Fortunately, we had an option that we would fall back on, which was the car washing. We took over at the time when the previous government had negotiated a tariff regime of 19.5 cents per kilowatt hour. For us, that was not good enough still. So we went to negotiations with them. We were able to beat that tariff down to 16.4, which is what we still contracted to with the company. That is the power. That's the main power that we are using right now. I'm saying the main power because supplementing that also is a Bumbuna hydro. So the two main sources of power here today, which we and I enjoy, are the cap washing and the Bumbuna hydro. I have to refer to some social media expressions some time ago when we had cause to send one of those two ships out. Conspiracy theorists went to town and said that government is because government is not able to pay the cap washing. That was why it was wrong. We had only one ship at some point, which was the cap washing at Clinton, for which we had a contract of 30 megawatts per government. Now, that ship had a capacity of 100 megawatts, but we could not utilize it. I.e., we could not use it to supply power the west part of the town, the center, and the east at the same time. Because of that, we had to approach the company to see how we can get out of these two options. One, and the challenge there was we could not take more because we had, and we still have, very weak network capacity. That is, evacuating that power from Kinton to the rest of the Western area was not possible through the current network that we had. So we went to Turkey, had a meeting with the company, myself, the technical team of the ministry. We discussed with them, and we did agree that the only short-term solution would be to bring in a second ship. Brought in a second ship, which is at Clinton. So the one for the western area was dedicated to the west and the center of Freetown. The one at Clinton was dedicated to the east up to Botany. Now, again, the contract structure was such that in our own language we call it take or pay. When you contract with a company on capacity, whether you utilize it or you don't, you have to pay for it. During the rainy season, we have an option of falling on Bumbuna. Because the hydro dam is at its highest capacity. Bumbuna has a capacity of up to 50 megawatts. In the dries, it comes down to about 8 megawatts. It's not bad. So at that time, we need to rely on the cap washing. But during the rainy season, we don't need the cap washing. But even if we don't utilize it, as long as it's part here, we have to pay for it. That is the contract agreement. That's the take or pay agreement. So because of that, we again negotiated with the company to say this is a convenient time for you to go and do your annual maintenance. You go through the ship, so it's gone, but it's coming back to center, just when the hydro level would have started falling down. I hope that lays that to rest for us. It's not because of generation capacity. And by that I mean, in some areas you'll find, because again the network is so weak, when there's heavy thunderstorm, the light goes off. Sometimes the pole falls down, when the pole falls down and the cable is cut, the light goes on. Sometimes again I have to talk about the economics of electricity. Electricity is such that the more you supply, the more people want it. The more you supply electricity, the more people want it. So in some communities now, because there is reliable and continuous electricity, many more customers come in. And the capacity of the transformers we have in such communities, in many communities, the capacity has become inadequate for those communities. And sometimes you also discover that the electricity, the quality of it is low. Sometimes it just go off, the transformer just blows off. And when we don't have transformers installed, it takes some time for us to replace them. Or when there is just minor faults, EDSA will go there and repair, but it takes some time. So if you see today, if you go out of electricity, it's not because there's no generation capacity. We have adequate generation capacity. But now using Bongona, using the second one, so there's adequate generation capacity for the Western area. But we're still facing problems associated with network problems. Outside of it, I believe many of you observe, I come from Bo, and there's hardly any other day when I'm not on negative criticism for not giving continuous power to Bo. And that's not because, that is not deliberate, because again, it's what we tell power supply system. Outside of those, all other districts, if you go across the whole country, we give donors, our partners, energy made it a priority in the support system or in the support development. Last week I was in the roundtable conference and the World Bank, ADB and many other partners, and we agreed on 3 key areas of intervention, which I will just quickly recap. One of them is to critically look again at the structure of EDSA, to try to strengthen EDSA, the efficiency of EDSA in terms of collection of revenue. So that the situation right now that we're facing, the government has had to subsidize a lot the electricity sector. And this is because the tariff you and I are paying to EDSA is not adequate, is not sufficient for EDSA to be able to continue buying electricity. EDSA is buying electricity from the suppliers. In this case, the main one being the car wash. But what EDSA is using to buy electricity is far higher than the tariff that you and I are paying for electricity. Therefore, there's a shortfall in the revenue for EDSA. And because of that, government has had to provide serious subsidies to the sector. That's one. Related to that is the fact that we need to bring in a lot more of cheaper energy. Like I said, the major source of energy right now is the car washing. The car washing uses fuel oil, HFO, heavy fuel oil, is extremely expensive. The only time you can have reasonable or cheap energy is when you go to renewables, like solar, like hydro, like wind. Our energy mix right now is not sufficient. It does not provide sufficient renewables in the system. So the major source of power is HFO, and that reasons. Again, we're trying to move from that. We've had some negotiations with the car worship. We have a 2-year contract with them. And the plan is that at the expiration of those 2 years, of that period, we're going to convert to LNG, which also is very expensive, is cheaper. So related to that is bringing down the cost of electricity. And then the third one, of course, like I said, the third one is to bring in more solar, more renewables, which is also in line with the new direction objective the President is emphasizing. The President really wants us to go more on renewables in the area of solar. Also, there's a lot of value in that regard as well. Now, we have a beautiful program, the Rural Renewable Energy Project, which has started. The pilot phases are implemented by UNOPS. That project has supported the establishment of 54 mini-grids using health centers as the hub. We're moving from that now, using the health centers, we now move from that here to now electrify the communities in which those health centers exist. It's very, very beautiful. Now, that was the work package, the first work package. We are moving from that to a second work package in which funding has been secured to move that to another, to extend that to another 44 mini grids. The plan there is to go those mini grids in all the 194 schedules. Now, the advantage of that is it creates an opportunity for us to provide or to increase our energy access in rural areas. Because we cannot afford to wait until we have the national grid cover all over the country before some of our people can have access to electricity, clean energy for that matter. So because of that, we are going to donors to come in that area as well. And that is very big. I'm happy to inform you that Sierra Leone is taking the lead in that mini grid sector. And we are recognized for that in the celebration. To the point that in November this year, I'm going to host 4 of my colleague ministers of energy from the Mano River to come and really learn from us and also share some experience from how we were able to do this. So these are some of the plans that we have. The challenges, many challenges. Let me now refer to, I didn't mention this, low access rate of energy. We're still at 16%. The entire country. 16% only of our population have access to affordable electricity. Load shedding, which is associated with that. High operating costs, I think I've mentioned that. High commercial and technical losses. I need to emphasize that a little bit. Part of the other problem that we are facing in this sector is illegal connections. You have many consumers who prefer, instead of going to ESA, to connect, who will go. We have many people who have, they are called technicians. Some of them, they have gone to some certificate courses at say OIC or any other institution. They will go and present themselves to consumers, and these customers, instead of going to ESA, will use these people to illegally connect them just to avoid paying tariff. It's one of our biggest problems. But we have a solution for that, which I'm going to unfold very soon. Mumuna capacity is seasonal. I think I mentioned that as well. Mumuna, you cannot rely on it all year round. It's just only during the rainy season. The dependency on diesel and HF, I think most of the other challenges I've mentioned as well. Now, one area that I think I need to talk about before I take my seat is the issue of meter, because I know whether I talk about it or not, people are going to ask questions about meters. We have some serious challenge with meters. When we took over, the situation was that ESA used to give out contracts to procure meters. But because of some of the reasons I have just highlighted, ESA's financial capacity became so low that they could not outrightly buy meters to come and sell to the public. So in the ministry, we sat and designed a system, what we call vendor financing. We went through a procurement process with the Ministry of Justice and the National NPPA, and we agreed to outsource. So we advertised, it was in the papers, and that is advertised, seeking requests for proposal for companies which will now apply to supply meters. We identified at the end of the procurement process 3 companies were identified, and the contracts have been signed with them. These are now the ones responsible for importing meters purely as a private sector initiative. So, but I can assure you that meters have started coming in, and much as we are now struggling with meeting the backlog of people, our priority right now is to concentrate on those who have paid for meters already before we consider new applicants. But new or old, by the end of this year, the issue of meters will have been history. I want to assure you of that. So, Madam Minister, esteemed members of the press, that's how much I would like to summarize right now in view of the short period that I have. I wish I had more time to go through all the issues I had. like to stop that.
It gives me a great pleasure to find myself here today. Unlike my colleague and my Koto, Dr. Kanja is my first press briefing, and I hope that I will rise up to the task. Of course, with regards to local governance, there are several issues that you may want me to explore or to look at. But because of the limited time that we have, I am here today to inform the nation that a very long overdue process, a process that many have been looking up to, is now underway. And that is the review of the Local Government Act and the decentralization policy. As the Deputy Minister of Information and Communications stated earlier, the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development is tasked with a mandate for policy formulation, coordination, and also provide oversight for local governance. You are also aware that during the campaign, His Excellency the President, retired Brigadier Julius Maada Bio, made a firm commitment towards strengthening of governing institutions in this country. And it is in this regard, in order to fulfill that particular mandate of strengthening local governance, reviewing the structures to make them as efficient and as effective as possible, especially for the beneficiaries at the end level, which is the rural areas. Of course, prior to this government, a few more councils have been added, districts have been added, and clearly there are challenges there in terms of the structure and in terms of the capacity. Capacity issues have always been issues in the nation as far as local councils are concerned. Those are issues that are being addressed right throughout the country. But for now, just as I said earlier, I am very much aware that you have too many questions to ask. But I want to particularly focus on this launching. The launching will be on the 15th of October at the Niata Conference Hall, and His Excellency the President will be there to launch the program. And what does this entail? It entails consultation with the rest of the nation, trying to find out what the people really want in terms of local governance. Again, it is the people's ask. We want the people to own the process, a deep level of consultation, so that the information and the act that we will have will actually speak to the issues that the people want. Members of the Fourth Estate, restructuring of local governance is something that happens everywhere in the world. You may be aware that for Sierra Leone, the Local Government Act itself preceded the policy of decentralization. In most cases, it is one that follows the other. The policy comes in front, and then you get the act. The policy drives what goes into the act. For Sierra Leone, it was the other way around. And since then, there hasn't been an alignment in terms of what the policy actually states and what is in the act. For several years, out of experience, very much service users right at the lower level or at council level or national level have realized that there are discrepancies in areas of role as to what the local council should be actually doing in terms of the devolved powers, our chieftaincy, or the chiefdoms and chiefdom councils as to what they should be doing. These are areas that we need to look at. Again, there are conflicting statutory instruments as well. Instruments that will deal with Chieftaincy Act, Education Act, Hospital Board Act, the Tourist Board Act. Most of these instruments were completed in isolation. And with the Local Government Act, especially with the policy of devolving functions from central government to local councils, it is now become very important that we look into the Act again and consider, because it's the umbrella instrument that covers all of that. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, even though I'm here to talk about the launching itself, already we've recruited a national consultant, and the UNDP has enabled us to also recruit an international consultant. The two consultants will be working together alongside with the ministry, the decentralization secretariat itself, in order to consult for a period of about 3 months. Once the process is completed, of course, it will go to cabinet, and then following that, it will be laid or tabled in Parliament. Members of the Fourth Estate, other areas that you may want to ask questions about may be areas of chieftaincy. Of course, at the moment, we've got about 62 vacancies to complete for paramount chiefs to be elected into. When I came into office nearly 3 months ago, we stopped the process for 2 reasons. There was a need for the new minister and the deputy minister to have an overview and have an understanding of the entire process itself. And I think it was only reasonable and totally appropriate for us to review the whole situation as to where we stand. Of course, prior to me coming into office, some chiefdoms had completed revision lists. Again, there are several issues. We are in consultation with NEC to try and agree as to which of these revision lists should actually stand and which need to be revised again. Again, it is about fairness, it is about transparency, and making sure that whatever process prevails is one that we can account for. As Minister of Local Government, and in terms of meeting His Excellency retired Brigadier Julius Maada Bio's mandate, it is only but proper for me to carry on and ensure that what is required of me is actually carried on. Of course, we know that there are many people out there who want the processes to be completed. But what I would have to say to them is that you be patient enough, and please allow us to do due diligence and ensure that we have a fair process. Members of the Fourth Estate, of course, the importance of actually drawing convergence between central and local ownership of whatever happens. Very recently, the Ministry of Finance, in collaboration with our ministry, conducted a 2-day workshop. And in that workshop, the key aim was for us to try and understand how we could increase the capacity of local councils in terms of revenue generation and revenue mobilization. You know, all of you may be aware that funds are in short supply everywhere in the world. So we have to manage the limited ones in terms of what government can allocate. We have to make sure that we have an efficient way of mobilizing revenue for local councils. That is home-sourced revenue. Again, the other thing that you may want to talk about is probably the presidential initiative, which is to do with the monthly claim. Of course, it's a very popular event that takes place. I can remember, even though obviously I've participated partially previously, this time around I was very active in trying to provide oversight, and I was particularly in Waterloo Rural District. And it gave me an enhanced experience, so that when we speak to the issues, I will be able to address them firsthand. I have seen the dump sites and the challenges that the councils face with regards to the dump sites. Finding new dump sites for Freetown is a matter of priority, and we'll be having conversations with the Ministry of Lands and all related ministries in trying to address this issue. As far as Waterloo was concerned, I kept getting phone calls on Sunday and sometime on Monday that one side of the road is blocked, mainly because vehicles line up the road. There is no access pathway at the Waterloo dump site, or even somewhere in the Kissy dump site. That makes it very challenging for vehicles to offload the rubbish that they have. Waste management is obviously an issue, and it's been a challenge over a period of time. And as a ministry, it is one that we will be having deep conversation with. One of our partners has already offered a consultant in terms of waste management, and we are in conversation to give the ministry the required support in ensuring that we succeed in this particular area. As I speak, there is underway capacity assessment all throughout the country, because each time you talk to certain individuals or some individuals up and down the country, they're always talking about capacity. And when we talk about capacity, one of the questions that comes up is, why are those suspended core staff sitting down and not engaging even though they are paid? The issue is being addressed very speedily. The important thing here is that we have to make sure that the staff that we have in place will be able to deliver. Because what is important to this government is to ensure that our people receive the required benefit, particularly from staff, especially wherein ministries are now very much committed to devolving functions to the local councils. We have to make sure that we develop robust processes, and that is why the capacity assessment is already taking place in all councils. Capacity assessment, both soft and hardware, in the councils, to ensure that we understand. And the process itself, just prior to coming to agree, the methodology itself with regards to how to assess capacity of local councils, we involved all the partners, be it DFID, be it UNDP, EU, they were all involved. We all agreed, because time and again you hear our international partners coming in to say we want to do capacity assessment. Rather than them doing it in isolation, we all agree the template of what we want to know. And currently that exercise is ongoing. What the ministry has done as well is trying to understand exactly what sort of activities are happening in those councils. And when we say activities, development projects, what sort of projects have they got in the rural areas, in the local areas? What's the time frame? How much money is involved in that? That will increase and speak to our oversight responsibility as a ministry. The data that will be collected from our partners, the donor partners, will also be collected from the local councils themselves, because the same questionnaires have gone down to the local councils. And then we have to compare so that there isn't an overlap with regards to who is doing what. Members of the Fourth Estate, I hope I've done due diligence, but today's particular briefing, you living here today, we want you, and we're inviting you to the launch of the review of the Local Government Act and the decentralization policy. Thank you very much, Madam Minister. Thank you all.
Until una sef don listen from the Deputy Minister of Information and Communication, but the updates on current thing the way they happen at the government, and also today una don listen from the Minister of Energy and the Minister of Local Government Council, but wetin dey happen at their own different ministries them. Me will bring the program come to you today. Me your name na Kona Sise. So till we meet again for another edition of Press Briefing, I say tata.